Well, welcome everybody. I'll kind of, this is like I said, some of you may have missed it, but our friend Tiffany could not make it today, so she won't be our presenter. So we'll start with Lee, and then we'll go into Karine, and then we'll do some updates on, oh yeah, Karine.
I would love to hear from attendees as to why they're here, what they're interested in, so we can kind of talk to that.
Yeah, sure.
Excellent.
Let me start by introducing the general proceedings, and then and if you have thoughts as an attendee about that, put it in the chat as we go. But just by way of introduction, I'm Jesse. I'm with the Permaculture Institute of North America, or PINA, and we are here today with our co-sponsors for the PCX space and these events, the Association for Regenerative Culture, or ARC. That's Lee and Zan. And also our other co-sponsor, We Regenerate.Earth, which is Karine's project, which we'll talk more about probably at some point in the not too distant future, and maybe even today. And we've been doing these town halls. I think this is our sixth, about disaster preparedness in the face, or with the lens of permaculture design, recovery, and planning, but also about like what to do if you're in the middle of a disaster. And we foresee more disasters in all areas of the North American continent. So we want to create useful resources and also host a summit in August all about this, where we can get a little bit deeper than what we are able to do here in terms of like education and planning and resources. So yeah, so like to Karine's question, I think, why are you here today? And maybe what are you hoping to plug into or get out of a group like this? How could we help address things? And then we'll pass it over to Lee to set the context. But if anybody has anything like to speak to about why you're here, then say it now or put it in the chat. There's no pressure.
Well, I haven't been to most of the previous town halls, but I decided I'd come here because I'm interested in how findings of this group might impact PINA's programming. I'm the executive director for PINA. So I'm responsible to kind of guide the organization in the directions it ought to go. And it's clear, we've gotten clear in recent months or seasons that Permaculture Institute's work is to design for natural risk. And that's how we're presenting ourselves more and more to the public. So obviously this is a conversation of great interest to me. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Peter. Anybody else, different perspectives or point of views, just coming into it, what you're hoping to get out of not just this meeting, but this general effort?
Yeah, I can jump in between eating lunch. Yeah, so I'm like I said, I'm in like Southern Ontario, Canada, and I am pursuing some, I'm pursuing some graduate work around I might have to pause if this keeps happening. I'm pursuing some graduate work around the potential for permaculture ethics to be used in more like federal and provincial disaster and emergency management practices. And so my hope, and I've attended a couple of these now, is just to connect with people and see like what's actually happening on the ground level. And my hope is being able to connect people who are doing that work at the community level with more resources, with more supports in order to take those practices and ethics and be able to actually like give them enough resources to be done on a bigger, broader community level. Because the problem we have mainly in Ontario is that there's a lot of support in the aftermath, but not so much in how do we like build communities that are resilient so that we don't have to spend as much money on resources afterwards in rebuilding. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. And I really appreciate all of the amazing people I've gotten to talk to and meet and all of the incredible initiatives you guys are taking on. So thank you.
Thanks, Emily. That's great. Anybody else? And then I'll introduce Lee to frame.
Yeah. I'll talk.
Please.
So I've been really into personal preparedness, which led me to for many years. I lived off grid in the early 80s with a little organic farm. Moved to Asheville into 88 and have had my focus about sustainability and doing something decent for the planet has led a lot of the work I've done. But simultaneously, I was able to buy some land and just a suburban little ranch, but really converted it to quite a resilient. And I have a permaculture certification, and I try to use those principles a lot. But at the moment, I've got 33 panels, 2 batteries, 3,000 gallons of rainwater, a very tight envelope home, permaculture gardens, and electric car. I mean, really trying to do it. And when the hurricane came, we were fine. We were fine. We were fortunate, right? We weren't in the flood zone, and the wind patterns, the trees flew away from our house. So all those are good fortune. But the amazing peace and sustainability of our situation because of that preparedness was really powerful. So I have been interested in, and I'm sorry that Tiffany isn't here. We met at a meeting here in Asheville where I've been trying to see, how do we stimulate neighborhood pods of resilience, to be in preparation for the next, because it's, this is our life now. We fucked up the planet. I hope nobody's concerned by my language, but we did everything that I was afraid we would do, is ignore the crisis. And so, many of us have turned to like, how can we do this? I mean, I was an elected official. I worked in many nonprofits trying to move it into the public sphere. But now, I'm a private citizen, and have these interests and attributes. Always, I mean, gardening will be my, people say, oh, you're a great gardener. I'm like, no, I'm not. There's so much to learn. It's a constant learning. There's never going to be an end to learning how to be a better permaculture gardener ever. Working hard at it. But what I'm trying to also figure out is those of us who have this impetus and have made these investments, how do we help our communities around us when this happens again? Can we create a template of readiness and awareness? Can we create a template for community assets? So that as an individual, I can go to my street, which I saw who came together on this area, and say, okay, let's have a meeting around this. Everybody fill out, their asset list. And so that's really a driving interest of mine. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for myself and my family. I mean, everybody, my kids and stepkids for a year were like, oh, you're a prepper. And damn if they weren't like, like, I love this stuff you got us for Christmas, so it's changed the story a little bit, and people are open and interested in understanding now. So how do we take it, I hate to say take advantage of this moment, but kind of taking advantage of this new awareness as a platform. What the thing I learned when I was on city council that just resonated with me forever was we had a bad storm in 2004. So excuse me. And that was the last bad flood we had. And, I'll never forget the emergency people saying, everybody needs to be prepared to take care of themselves for 2 weeks to a month, period. Because if you do, you release the burden on those who can't do that, right? Because now the emergency services can take care of them. So there's a huge social permaculture aspect that I feel in all that. It's like, what do we do with this little bit of knowledge that we're building in ourselves, or many people more knowledge, to be that permaculture for our communities as the stuff is changing around us. That's why I'm here.
That's what we're here for. That's exactly what we're doing.
Love it. Thanks, Robin. Welcome, Skeeter. Welcome, Pete Forrest. Just so y'all know, since you guys got here just now, we're just kind of saying why we're here, what we're hoping to get out of this. And I think Leslie had her hand coming up, and then Karine, maybe you wanted to say something too. But Leslie, why don't you go next?
Great. Hi. This is my first meeting, and I'm a student in the Regenerative Land Management program with earth activist training. And I think, Jeff, you were at our group
Yes.
not too long.
Yes.
That
good
was
to see you
great.
again.
That's actually how I learned about this specific group, although I knew I wanted to be learning much more about what everything that's happening with PINA. And so this, and also fund development, is an area of interest for me. I think there's kind of a corresponding group. So I'm a student and a teacher and a facilitator, and I do fund development work. One of my main clients is White Earth Land Recovery Project, and I am interested in how in the bioregional and local focus that was brought up, and also in how we integrate and follow Indigenous leadership and wisdom. And I think about that a lot in the work I'm doing with White Earth. And I also have been drawn to emergency preparedness. I've done the CERT training 3 times. And I even thought that the community emergency response team training that's happening in some US communities, usually through fire departments, would be a great permaculture strategy if we had like many people, many permaculture repair people get that. Kind of to Emily's point about some of the work she's doing, to start to integrate those more. And I'm actually embedded with an active local group in a Minneapolis suburb. So I've done some teaching. I did presented in both these areas at previous convergences, emergency preparedness equals community resilience, and entirely this Lent. So really excited to be here. And I have to step away for work for 30 minutes. So if it's okay for me to come back at the top of the hour, I'd like to. Great. So I thought, I'll come and introduce myself and go from there. So thank you.
Awesome. Great to have you. Thank you. You might be a good presenter for our summit. Hint, hint, hint.
So excited to learn about that. Yeah, both the guide and the summit. I was like, want to learn more about this. Thank you.
Cool.
We're going to show you the guide today. You get to see it.
Yeah.
Good.
Skeeter or P Forest, or anybody else who's not spoken, if you want to, you can share why you're here, what you're hoping to get out of this, and then we'll jump into introducing Lee and his initial framing presentation.
Yeah, hi there. I just thought why am I here? I just wanted to see some faces of some permaculturists. And it's really great to see Peter Bain and Lee Barnes, who I know, and Jesse and Karine, of course. So anyway, so I know some of you, and so I guess I'm here because I'm lonely.
Family, Skeeter, you're welcome.
But so I don't have any particular overriding motives in the sense of, but at some point maybe I can just tell you a little bit about what I got going on here. But I'm just sort of along for the ride, at least for a bit. So, but it's just nice to be in good company. So that's good for me for now.
Love it. Thanks. Welcome, Skeeter. You're always
Great to see you.
And P Forest if you want to, but you also might be busy, and that's fine too, or in a place where you can't hop on your screen or something like that. I get it. That's how it goes sometimes. Okay, well, let me introduce Lee, unless Zan, you have anything else you want to drop in?
No, though, if people would also like to make comments at any point in the chat, those are always really helpful as we go along. So please feel free to contribute.
Yeah, thank you. So we're going to have Lee Barnes sort of frame things from the Western North Carolina perspective. And this is how this group this is the spark of this group, is Helene and then Lee's response to it. So let me give him a proper introduction here. Lee Barnes, PhD, is president and founder of ARC, the Association for Regenerative Culture, and a passionate advocate for permaculture and environmental sustainability. With a background in environmental horticulture, Lee has dedicated over 3 decades to educating and empowering individuals to embrace regenerative practices. He co-founded the Southeastern Permaculture Gathering and has been instrumental in organizing numerous seed and plant shares, emphasizing the importance of preserving heirloom and native plant varieties. Lee's expertise expands to the regional natural history, old-growth forest preservation, sustainable agriculture, and dowsing. He is a strong believer in fostering a sense of place and inspiring individuals to take responsibility for regenerating the future. Take it away, Lee. Thank you for leading us here.
Thank you. This is the 6th time I've given an introduction. So there'll be some similar slides. And
can you see this?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make it.
So Jesse's going to help me go through the slides. This is just to hold your attention. That's a big storm. I'm so excited today about actually learning more about people locally who have been impacted. I'd hoped more of the Swannanoa folks would be able to join us, but I've got about a 15-minute slideshow that'll overview at least the catastrophe of hurricane, fire, flood, surge events, economic, other things. So next slide. Okay. So this picture really shows a lot to me, the blackout of lights and the massive size, area larger than the state of Massachusetts. 12,000 square miles were impacted in 7 states and central, right on Western North Carolina. Next slide. Just showing power outages. I tend to forget the people in South Carolina and some in Georgia that lost power and had some flooding also. So most of my data will be for the Western North Carolina part. I'm more familiar with. Next.
What's the map area we're seeing there, Lee?
That's basically Northern Virginia down.
Now.
Yeah,
North Carolina, Virginia above it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you can kind of see the county lines in there. So.
Oh, yeah, it's state level.
Yeah, it's
Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina.
So, and I tend to forget about the people downstream because, Irwin, Tennessee and the Nolichucky and places, just amazing. Next slide. Yeah. Just a short comparison. Some of you were more impacted by Katrina, but Helene was bigger, larger diameter, larger wind field. So it was a big one. There will be more bigger. Next slide. So the basic route through, and it swerved a little bit to the left, to the west, and that probably preserved some of the damage we had in Waynesville, the very western tip. The next slide. People ask me, how are we doing? Are we okay? Is back to normal? And I have to sit down and say, we won't be normal for 1,000 years. If you look at old growth, this is a nice little chart that just kind of shows that, we had an impact and great recovery. The most amazing part of all this is community coming together to help each other and outside community coming. So there's going to be the honeymoon. I say we're pretty much, there or past, and there's going to be disillusionment and ups and downs. So prepare ourselves for ups and downs and what little goals we can have. Next slide.
That's a marvelous graph, Lee. Thank you.
If you want me to hold anything, and this will be viewable. I just wanted to throw in quick, in case I run out of time, that I know Western North Carolina for 35 years. I've hiked it. I've sold properties. I've doused wells. And the catastrophe is the greatest natural disaster I can think of in the Southeast within living history. We've got some floodplains that there were some big ones before. But anyway, I saw this as an opportunity to bring on permaculture to help design a better future. So I came up with this thought of a general guide that would be kind of short and simple. It could be downloadable, ebook, whatever. So when the power goes out, you can't get access to other information. You still have a core. And we decided it's been a great group think on how this is going to start with. The disaster is in your face, because we were totally unprepared this time. And the survivalists and our preppers and all that. And have a series of guides of which Karine will go over to help people, design better. So that's my inspiration, is that this is going to be a model, I hope, for any bioregion and any major disaster. Okay, next slide. So just to throw this in, if you're not a member of the working group, we'd love to have you join us. And also a little plug for PCX, Permaculture Crossing. It's if you're not really into it, study it more, and I think you'll find it is very helpful in linking just with the people you want to link with. And I think it's wonderful the number of people that have come together to these meetings and international experience and all that stuff. So next slide. So Western North Carolina, Katua, Getawa bioregion, the Southern Appalachian Highlands. It has a lot of ridges and coves, and this was described in the, I think, 20s as a typical village in the Appalachians. And I would say it's probably just one family working up the hollow. But this is an image that, the hillbillies that people might know. Next slide. These are like 19 major watersheds that make up Katua. Getawa is more the correct pronunciation by the Cherokees, but we actually put out an environmental magazine for 10 years on the region, and it's available online. But you can see the individual watersheds, all the water is focused into those streams, and that's where the communities are, and that's where your utilities and commerce are. So especially impacted, plus just the physical isolation. Getting over to one other place, you have to talk about travel time instead of miles. Next slide. All sorts of new satellite imagery. This happens to be from the north looking southwest, Roan Mountain. And you can see the damage on the eastern side. There are places of 41% forest destruction. No place was unimpacted. Next slide. Just the center day of rain. Mount Mitchell got better than 2 feet. Busick, North Carolina, base of Mount Mitchell, over 30 inches. And it was preceded by a rain that varied from 8 inches to 12 inches in the region. So that's a lot of water to come down real quick. Next slide. So I put this in because I thought we might have some of the Swannanoa people, but this is down in the floodplains where our, the first places to build and commerce, so heavily impacted. And it's just wonderful that a local group is talking about economics and rebuild and cleanup and everything. So we'll hopefully have Tiffany on talk more about what they've got going there. Next slide. This is a pretty little mountain stream, and you could hop over it, I think. And next slide. This is after Helene, same spot. Oh. Same spot. The debris flow, it's a little different than just a landslide in that it carries everything it picks up, trees, boulders, houses, whatever. Oh. And yeah, we had 3 that were at least 2 miles long, traveling probably at 30, 35 miles an hour. And that's where the most people were killed. And in Swannanoa, there was a major one. So the landscape has changed. It's considered a geological disaster. Next slide. So once again, showing that the rain varied in sites. Just the general models aren't as accurate, and you can see the lighter blue and then darker blue in the middle are our high mountain peaks. Next slide. So lots of dots. These are the reported landslides. So anytime up in the mountains here, we get 3 to 5 inches of rain in a couple of days, and then have anything on top of that, we got landslides. So
because there's just granite underneath, guys. I mean, it's just rock underneath.
Crystalline bedrock, yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't have that much granite. Yeah,
I mean, that's what I meant, quartz.
I could do a whole geology. In fact, we'll talk about geology later. Next slide. So urban forests, there was a special project to map damage in Helene and to actually go out and check out the age and diameter and condition of trees. And as I remember, it was the white pines, and I think it was it the red oaks that really took a beating. Yeah. And 78% or something of 300 trees, looked at had no damage, pre-existing, a rot or mushrooms or anything like that. So it was just a hell of a lot of wind. But anyway, this has significantly changed Asheville's heat island effect, I expect. And but they've got a baseline that now of city trees that should be a model for every city. Next slide.
Say something about that key, Lee, the colors. What are we to pick up on here?
Yeah, intensity of damage.
Okay, so the yellow to brown is the more intense damage?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, that I can send you the whole article that goes into depth. There's some new techniques where they use a couple infrared wavelengths, and they can differentiate like 4 levels of damage.
So most intense, it seems to be along the main stem of the French Broad.
Yes.
Right there on the left center. Okay, thanks. That helps.
And next slide is one I actually took, which is just north of Asheville. It's Elk Mountain Scenic Highway that goes up to the Parkway. I had a well site marked up there where I spray paint the ground and put in surveyor flags, and the paint was gone. It was scoured away. I mean, the soil was scoured away. So this is a month after, they cleared and made it possible to get up there. The Parkway isn't open yet. And that's a major, economic impact. The timing of this, our big leaf season.
It's been devastating to business.
Yeah. And I've got one slide I'll go more on. Next slide. So this is not a lumber yard. This is part of the Appalachian Trail. And these weren't towed in there to, for a pickup. They were the trail. So incredible amount of forest debris. I think we're going to have trouble with fires for many years.
Oh, God.
And next slide. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm just having a little.
No, it is emotional. I tried not to show the very worst. So this is Blue Ridge Parkway sections opened and closed. The Blue Ridge Parkway is probably $2 to $3 billion worth of income to the region. The Western North Carolina trout fishing is a $1.2 billion industry. So this is going to be a major, major impact for years on tourism, plus things happening and money's not appearing for the national services and plans to mass harvest areas. It's incredible. So stay alert to what's going on. So a lot of these places are sheer, the drop off. So it's going to take a while. It's not just clearing trees. I've forgotten the number of slides. So this is near me. This was the Rattlesnake Cove fire near me, Waynesville, north of Canton. This is actually a fire. Someone could get up on the Parkway and take a picture down to it. But that's getting close to me. That's about 8 miles from me. And I had, once again, clients adjoining it. So I got to go up.
This picture taken, Lee?
A month ago?
month ago.
A month ago.
Yeah.
A little, yeah,
It's
probably
right
a little
across.
less.
It's right across the valley from my house up there.
Yeah.
I have pictures like that taken from my porch.
Oh dear God.
Yeah.
Who was talking? Who was that?
That's Connie.
Honey.
She has a house just across from it. So this was just a picture of the volunteers and the professionals there as they were closing down that fire. But there, other fires hopping up. I hear over east of Mitchell County, fires, 600-700 acres size or more, doubling. Yeah, that's where a lot of that firewood load is. There's another one. Where am I thinking of? Near Joyce Kendler. Joyce Kendler.
Right
Yeah.
now, Lee? Right now, you say?
Yes, now.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And this is getting near the end of the slide. Next slide. That's it. That's the one over east of the Parkway. That's the Parkway up there. Wild Acres. And that one's, I think, 800 acres as of yesterday. So they're going to be popping up. And are there any more slides?
I think that's it.
Good.
Oh my. Oh my. Oh my.
Thank you.
So any of these PowerPoints are available, and they will be, I would assume. Well, the individual I can send to people, but we'll have this. It's being taped, and so you'll see it there. But this project, I feel like I threw a big stone into a big pond, and the rippling is amazing me. The number of people interested in the project. And I thank you for being here and learning a little bit more about our intent. And I think Karine will blow you all away with things that have been progressing with the guide. So unless I've missed anything.
That was wonderful, and it's terrifying and amazingly. Thank you for presenting it.
Yeah, I don't know. I was talking about, Zan and I were talking about maybe a list of other hazards, and she may mention that later. But I'm thinking, there's, community rebuilding, earthquakes. Somebody said meteor showers, EMF, nuclear war. I mean, but let's hit the ones that we can do something about and demonstrate that you can make a better future. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Robin, did you have anything to share since this is so
I
close
just
to you?
want to, I want to apologize for getting emotional. We are all recovering around here, and you think, we're going somewhere, and then you get up to a place that you used to love, or got your heart. And I mean, everybody who lives here, it doesn't matter who you are, you're here because of nature and because of what's happening. And the wounds of it all are just, they're stunning. Seeing Elk Mountain look like that. I have not driven up there. That used to be one of my spots to go. And but yeah, I'm in. Lee, if we can connect what's going on here, I'd like to, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Robin. That's part of our guides too, is the emotional and the traumatic weight and implication of all these types of things. It's very real.
Yeah.
So, well, I'll move on to introducing Karine, or Zan's my co-pilot here, so I got to just check in. Is that all right, Zan, or do you think we should do something else? Or
I think that sounds great. And if you make me a co-host, I can help you a little.
Absolutely.
I forgot to say that earlier.
Make a co-host. And welcome everybody. If you came halfway through or so, we just had Lee introduce sort of the general premise and inspiration, and now we're going to have Karine go through some of the output of what we've been working on, and then we'll have some open space to just share what we think we can build and how people can plug in. So welcome, and please, like Zan said, share maybe where you're from and what your interest is in coming to this group in the chat. And then at the end, we'll have time to actually hop on the screen if people want to and share more and connect more. So without further ado, Karine Brennan is a highly experienced permaculture designer and educator with a passion for food forestry, small farms, food security, and community building. She has taught permaculture design extensively in the United States and internationally. Karine responded to the Haiti earthquake in 2010, organizing a permaculture team who used design principles to integrate regenerative solutions into disaster response and recovery. She worked with others to expand those efforts and has continued to communicate the opportunities to rebuild human systems harmed by disasters in more regenerative ways. Karine has a permaculture farm in Florida and is a PINA diplomate and board member, and she teaches permaculture design online and in person. And Karine has also been the person sort of leading the charge in creating these documents that we're about to talk about. So Karine, welcome. Take it away.
Thank you. So we decided to do, I've been following disaster management and response and, prepping for disaster for a long time from a permaculture lens. And I'm really glad that this project is happening because it's so needed. And it's a project that is community-based. It has to be, because it's too big for any one of us. And the more we come together and work together on this, the more successful it's going to be and the more effective it will be. So it's a good container to have these different groups coming together to work on it. And PINA is established of the groups, I think, with a staff and everything, like Steve, who's been such a great person to work with. I think we would be interested in partnering with others who want to contribute to this. It's a huge job. I just wanted to make that pitch before I get into talking about the manual. A lot of my work has been just reaching out to people who have already done the work and absorbing their information and putting it into a form that is accessible. And there's the first manual that I wrote a hurricane prep article a long time ago for my community and put that on my website and everything, and that's available, but we're upgrading it and adding to it now through this group. But we also started a kind of an overall prep guide that is going to be our next release, and that gives a lot of information about how do you recover, who do you go to, all these things that aren't readily available, or there's bits and pieces available all over the internet. And the same with, how do you respond in an emergency? How do you prepare for overall situations? And people who have been prepping for a lot of years or off grid understand this, but a lot of the rest of us do not. People who have done CERT training, et cetera, they have more of an idea of what is actually involved. The first manual that we have completed in the beta version is the Fire Manual, and that's what we want to talk about today. And as I was doing the research for this, I was really pleased to see how much information is out there on the West Coast with people who have been dealing with fires. And it's more evolved than I was aware of, and this is great because we need this information to be compiled and put into an easily accessible place. So there's a number of resources that Zan has put into an online library, which she can talk about. But we also wanted to create a manual that is easily accessible and absorbable. So it's in 3 parts, and maybe Jesse, I don't know if you want to share some of this stuff as I talk about it. Jesse has
the Canva doc.
Yeah. Jesse has put this into a attractive format that can be easily kind of absorbed. And we, as Lee pointed out, we separated this into 3 sections. The first one is emergency response, which is, what do you do when a fire is headed towards you? We're trying to make this as simple as possible. give you step by step. What do you do with your animals? What do you do with your family? How do you evacuate if you need to evacuate? What do you take with you? How do you prepare your property for the firefighters if they're coming there, you know, to make it more likely that your place will survive if the fire's headed toward you and you haven't done much prep, or even if you have. So yeah, you can move through that. And then the part 2 is a rapid response. You haven't done a lot of prep, but you have time. It's fire season. Maybe there's fire happening near you that could head toward you. These are relatively simple steps. Some of them are a little bit more complicated than others, but there's things that you could get done maybe in a couple of weeks, or in some cases less time than that, to prepare for fire if you haven't already done so. And we're trying to put some kind of low tech and more permaculture kinds of things into that. The survival thing is just like, you know, get in your car, have your stuff ready. Doesn't have a lot of permaculture in it, but we're always looking for ways to include more regenerative solutions. So yeah, what kinds of equipment should you have to be ready for evacuation? There's a lot of things that people don't necessarily think about, like the air quality. What do you need to handle that? You know, a lot of people have had permanent damage in their lungs because of not being prepared to deal with the air quality, even if it doesn't, you know, come and burn your house down. So yeah, this is basic preparation that I was talking about. You know, do a fire audit. Here's 7 simple steps, relatively simple, that you can do to harden your home against fire. You know, the top steps that are recommended by firefighters.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you recover after fire? It's just, we're trying to take important points that people don't necessarily know about or think about to protect your health, your life, the neighborhood, etc. A lot of people don't understand how much toxicity there is after a fire, and they go and stir it up and spread it all over in the air. So just little things like that. It's also true in some other situations like floods. Okay, so this next section is the key section from a permaculture viewpoint. How do you prepare for this in the most regenerative way possible? How do you get the highest ecological and human care needs out of preparation and recovery? So this addresses, you know, preparation, prevention, and recovery and mitigation from a permaculture lens, from a whole systems design lens. And this can be a little challenging, for instance, because creating a defensible space is kind of the opposite of having a food forest in your yard. Yeah. So we try to include some information about how can you have a food forest and have it be fire resistant. And there's specific techniques for this. And what I'm finding in the research that I've done so far, and this is why this is a beta version, is that I couldn't find much information about proven techniques for having a fire resistant food forest. There's extrapolation that we can take from, you know, information that we have, that firefighters have about fire resistant landscapes that should work. So this is, you know, kind of, we're getting into a little bit of an experimental edge here in some of these examples. Jesse, can you go down a little further? So we have you know, it's very interesting to look, and I lived in California right on the edge of a fire ecology, and you know, we had explosive plants at the border of our property, which we got rid of because they were explosive. And we noticed that one of the houses that were in a burn neighborhood wasn't touched. It was surrounded by prickly pear cactus. The only one that wasn't touched. He had a lot of other cactus and low flammable plants in his yard. So it's interesting to look at that regardless of where you are, because fires can happen anywhere. To know what are your fire resistant plants and how can you put them on the edge of your property. That's just a simple basic as far as creating a fire resistant food forest. So this is, some examples, and I actually used the example of in our neighborhood of a fire resistant house. So keep going, Jesse. So, there's a lot of different elements: preventing fires, cultural burning, using grazing animals. These are different ways of preventing fires. Composting the underbrush. These are permaculture examples that are less known than what people usually do in the mainstream to handle fire prevention. How do we get the most yield out of this dead wood? So this is where we come in as permaculture designers, and the purpose of doing this section is to get it into the hands of disaster recovery people, local politicians who are open to it, anybody who may take this on and get a spark of creativity and think, hey, there, as Robin was talking about earlier, there may be a way that we can recover better so that we don't have to keep going through this on this kind of level. So that's really the purpose of this deeper dive section, is to provide methods and case studies of permaculture techniques and tools, and it doesn't have to be limited to permaculture, anything that's regenerative that we can use to mitigate future disasters. Because the response to that is very inadequate. And I've worked with disaster response and adaptation groups in my region for hurricane. It's not a whole systems response, and they really need this technology. They need permaculture. And one reason I got involved in this is, number one, I want more permaculturists to be prepared for disasters, but also, as Robin said, it's just so wasteful the way that we're recovering. It's we can do much better, and people are desperate when they go through something like this, so they're more receptive. You have to talk to city officials and governments and all kinds of people, business people, and they're interested in green, they're interested in permaculture, but they aren't necessarily all that serious about it. But after disaster in Haiti and in LA, where I worked on the Northridge earthquake, and other situations, hurricane situations in Florida, people are much more interested and receptive in these regenerative solutions after they've been through a disaster. And it depends on the person, of course, but it's much more real to them as to why they might not want to go through this again. Anyway, I'd like to open it up for questions or comments, or, Zan, if you want to say anything about the library.
That's so awesome, Karine. That just makes me so happy every time I see it. Hi, I'm Zan Bonafice, and in the Houston area, I'm part of this group, and I just like to, I feel like we should all lift Karine up on our shoulders for this amazing job that she has done, and walk around and throw, I don't know, eco-friendly confetti. And we have a whole team of folks who are are working on this and supporting her, and not just those of us who are in the kind of the coordinators, but then there's an even bigger circle of people, of which many of you are members, who have contributed in lots of ways. And it's so important, I think, that we keep saying that we're not doing this alone. We want all of your input. Amazing people have come in and edited and added things and say, hey, what about this? And all of those have had an impact on that document that you see. And I'll just show you really briefly. This is going to be a lot to see, but they will eventually all be available in multiple places. But one of the places is the PCX has a website. A little known fact, PCX is not just a Mighty Networks, but also has a website, and it's pcx.earth. And this, the address here is pcx.earth/disaster. And this is where we will be releasing the guide. See, look, I have a little spot where we're going to link this up as soon as it's ready, what Jesse was just showing you. Oh, by the way, Jesse did all that beautiful formatting and everything that you saw there too. And we have a little bit of, here's, where we're going next. Actually, maybe I didn't reload this. I was actually editing this page while Karine was talking. Oh, here we go. Next up is the general guide that Karine mentioned, and she's also got a hurricane guide. And I'm going to say it because Karine had done this ages ago, that will be ready to go soon. And we're also thinking about earthquakes and wind and other things that come up from the group. And ways these can be. And each of these guides are accompanied by downloadable checklists. You saw some of those. You'll be able to get all this stuff here, and you'll get the latest versions, because these are living documents that we will continue to add to. And thanks to technology, and because we can't rely on this technology, you don't even want to think about who actually owns all these servers that this stuff is on right now. They're all downloadable. And we want you to download them, and lots of copies, keeping stuff safe, and we want those to be in all the places that they need to be. And we'd love to get folks thinking about that too, in terms of making these regionally available, and getting them out as broadly as possible. So that's a piece of that. And Karine showed you the deeper dive section. Each of those guides will have a deeper dive, and we do have an online repository. This is what it looks like now. And each of those guides, as they come out, there should be a fire one in here, will have a related kind of repository of here's where you go for all the science and research and et cetera behind it. So this is just an example of some of the things that are referenced in the fire guide, and there's more of these things kind of to come. So that's just really quickly to kind of zoom out and show a little bit of context. But I see that Skeeter Michael Pilarski, Global Earth Repair, has raised his hand.
Yeah, is that it looks like that the guide that Karine just finished, it looks like, is that online now? Where do I actually get my hands on it? At the PCX Earth./disaster, or
where it's at is we have a Google Doc with the document in it. Jesse, we just had an extensive edit done on it. So Jesse is uploading that now. It's probably going to be done by this weekend, right?
Yeah, Saturday it'll be done.
Okay, and then it will be published on this website that Zan just showed. But if you want to participate in editing the doc, we're happy to give you access to the Google Doc, and that goes for any of the documents. We don't want to get it too cluttered, so we need to have some kind of control over it. But Michael, you probably have all kinds of information. Happy to give you. We have a folder with all the documents that we're working on in it, and we're happy to give people access. You can put notes in a separate document that we can access and look at, case studies that you're aware of. There's a lot of different ways you can participate, and we're also open to your ideas about how to make it more efficient or more accessible.
Well, I don't have time really to jump into this. I just want to get your finished version. because I can really help get it out to people living here in the inland Northwest. I live in a zone that is ponderosa pine, grassland, shrub steppe, sagebrush. We're talking very burnable. I live in a really burnable neighborhood, and we have some horrendous fires in the past decade. And so, so I really will, as soon as I can get my hands on the finished product, I want it, and I will promote it to my circles here who really could use it. So thanks very much. That's great you're doing this. Thank you.
Yes, and just another thing, this is a beta version. It's a living document. There will be improvements, and there will that website, so people will always be able to get updates. But yes, we'll get that to you, Michael, and thank you for your work.
Karine, what kind of help do you need right now? What are you looking for?
Well, let's hear from Mike first, and
Okay.
then I'll answer your question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then Bob.
Don't let me interrupt, but I'm sorry I got on late. I worked for many decades in emergency preparedness, emergency response in the chemical industry as a risk engineer, and I was wondering whether or not there is a guide for a fairly simple, straightforward method for risk assessment on our individual properties that we can provide to people. If not, we could certainly create one. Thank you.
For chemical
Thanks, Mike.
destruction? Is that your
No,
question?
the chemical industry, we work all the time against disasters, to prepare for that and to respond. But we don't want to just be responsive. We want to be preemptive. And as a result, what we do is we use a number of risk assessment techniques. I'm in the process of preparing some simple course module for risk assessment for permaculture. My question was, is there something that's out there for the disaster preparedness that we can provide to people, a simple, straightforward method that can be applied to any location and so on, to help them better prepare on a local basis? Because as was mentioned earlier, for example, I also live in a high fire risk area.
Yes,
And
this manual is supposed to be for the individual. There are parts of it that address the community level as well, but it's mainly geared toward the individual and giving them simple checklists. We will have separate checklists they can put on the refrigerator. We're trying to make it as accessible and simple as possible.
So you have, Karine, a disaster preparedness manual in preparation. Is that right?
The fire manual is just about to be published. There's an overall manual as well that's close.
That's what I'm pointing to, just for my.
So my understanding then is that you have a checklist in there for risk assessment for an individual property as part of the disaster preparedness.
We link to several, actually, because there's some really good ones out there already.
This type of stuff, though, is kind of what you're getting at, Mike. Like,
well, risk assessment is the first step. Then you do the actions. But yes, we do have a link to a very good risk assessment template that people can use for fire specifically, and we'll have those for each type of disaster and overall disaster as well.
Great.
Hey, Mike, are you Mike from North Texas?
Northeast Texas, yes.
Yeah, hi, it's nice to meet you. So Mike is actually in our group and has recently done permaculture teacher training, and I'm hearing you're willing to jump to help, and yeah, please, we would love to get your perspective on this. Absolutely. Oh, who's that?
I've been looking through the literature and stuff, and the majority of the risk assessments and so on I see are checklist based, which has kind of like predetermined outcomes. And what we've learned the hard way in the chemical industry is that if you predetermine your outcomes using checklists and you're restricting to that, then you're not necessarily identifying all the situations you need to. On the other hand, a checklist tends to be very practical, very pragmatic, and more people are more likely to use it. So if you propose something that people aren't going to use, then that's useless. I'm trying to straddle the middle ground by preparing a methodology that's adapted from the chemical industry, which is very intuitive, that can be done on a piece of paper, can be done on a whiteboard with yellow stickies, on a chalkboard or whatever. You don't have to have special equipment to do it. And the idea is that it's both a combination of both open-ended and as detailed as you want to make it. So it's something that I think the community could learn to use. But again, I'm new to all this, so don't let me push something which is stupid.
I would love to see it. It sounds interesting, and we're all learning here. So, I appreciate the work you've done, and I would love to see it.
Yeah,
And
I guess the easiest way to demonstrate it at some point to let people have a better assessment is simply to try and do it. So if somebody wants to try and set up a brief meeting, half an hour and so on, I can demonstrate the method. And we would actually, probably the easiest way to do this is to have somebody show us their design or their what their land looks like, and then we can actually go and do a risk assessment on that. And then you'll learn the method and then see whether or not it works from that point of view.
that might be an interesting town hall exercise.
Yeah, that would be fun for a town hall or one of our coordinating meetings. We're definitely doing that. Yeah.
And then Bob's had his hand up, so go for it, Bob.
Yeah, what I wanted to mention is that in teaching the disaster and permaculture classes, I think the thing that a lot of the students hadn't thought much about is what happens in high winds to fire, how fast it spreads. It spreads as a square of the speed of the wind. And on slope, the same thing, up slope from down slope. So you add those two things in with an urban area where people are living in apartments or houses. In a hurricane, for example, is my neighbor going to barbecue outside? For example, because maybe their electricity is off and they can't cook. I wouldn't like them lighting a fire downwind, upwind from me, during a hurricane.
We do have a section in the manual that addresses the village scale fire response that David Holmgren has done some work on, and I extracted from that, but that could be expanded for sure.
In Colorado, I've forgotten the name of the town, but they were huge destruction because they had high winds coming out of the mountains there. And the fire just wiped through that town quickly, very quickly. And what I'm saying is that people need to be aware that high winds are a very much different kind of fire problem than still winds. And urban areas particularly. I mean, it's not just forested areas that are a fire hazard. It's my next door neighbor.
Yeah, I think people got a real wake-up call on Los Angeles, which got national media. So hopefully a lot of people are thinking about that weren't before.
So this is about the time we'd go into breakout rooms, but given that it's a fairly small group, we can avoid the breakout room and just do a breakout room altogether and see what's bubbling up for folks, what type of things that you might want to see in the fire document that we've not presented so far, or ways that you might help, or resources that you might have, or just generally thoughts at all. So that's sort of where I'm thinking this might go, but if anybody else has thoughts, or Zan, I always come back to you if you have other directions you might want to push it. Go for it.
Well, Emily had a suggestion in the chat. Do you want to say a little bit more maybe about what you were thinking?
Yeah, I haven't done this so much for from a permaculture perspective, but more so for like community level planning around like resource identification. But the thought that I was just thinking was around is there a way to kind of establish some sort of a flow chart with some of the bits and pieces that have already been identified with checklists? So for example, if somebody was saying, I want to look through this big folder or this big binder, but this is a lot. Can I narrow down what's applicable to me? And so one of the first questions might be like, do you live in a detached house or do you live in an apartment? Or like something kind of like that that starts narrowing down what is applicable to you. Similarly, there might be a like, do you know your neighbors? And there might be just like a little worksheet of like, write down the names of your neighbors who you know and like their contact information or just things kind of like that. That might break down all of this really valuable information in a way that people can identify what actually applies to them. Because I know in my experience that the issue isn't oftentimes that these resources don't exist. It's that there's so many of them that actually identifying what applies to the individual can be the barrier between preparedness and being overwhelmed and just not being able to take on an individual preparedness plan. So that was just a thought of, is there a way to kind of break it down so that people can identify what applies to them so that they can make a plan a little bit more quickly or sort of cut through what doesn't?
Robin.
So Emily, we did something like that back when I was working with, do you know ICLEI? They were doing climate greenhouse gas stuff for communities and cities. And we did it on a spreadsheet. So I know a digital model for that. We did it on an Excel spreadsheet, and if you said, I live in a apartment, so then click, they go and it sends you to the next one. But so I know a digital model for doing that, but I wouldn't know how to download, into something that's in people's
visual.
Another thing I'm just curious about, as a millennial, I know a lot of people don't have access to printers. So what is is there any thoughts around how to make this document accessible for folks? Like, I don't know, working with like in my context, it would be like reaching out to local libraries, seeing what printing resources are available. I don't know if that's as much of an option for a US context, but just like that's also a thing that pops up to me because that is also a barrier that I've run into of like, you can print this out and put it on your fridge. And it's like, I don't have a printer. Like hurdle one failed.
Everybody uses their phones. Why not have it available as an app on a phone?
Yeah, it is a PDF, so meant to be viewable as readily as possible. But then when all your juice goes and your batteries die, I love the idea of working with libraries if and when they get some funding back again, which is problematic right now.
That's part of
in the library one. Pardon?
I said that's part of an asset map. Who's got a printer in your community who can print it out?
Yeah, absolutely.
Working as a team rather than everybody having to have it themselves. Who's going to be the library for this information?
Karine is asking for a text of the link.
Oh, okay.
Send it.
You got that, Zan?
Thank you.
Yeah, something that came up last time was I don't think we have this in the fire document yet, but the need to practice, to rehearse this is really critical too, because that way you're taking care of the printing, whatever printing that needs to be done ahead of time. And then you're like, oh yeah, okay. And then I have my little folder with all the things I got to do or my checklists in it or something like that. So it might be something, I run like a co-run with my buddy here in Washtenaw County Permaculture meetup group. That's something that we're thinking we could do with our meetup group, is just do a practice like emergency preparedness run through or something. Oh, did Zan? Oh, I see. Yeah, the formatting on the Canva is still needing to be finished, but then it should be finished by this Saturday. I'll send this to you when I'm done with it, Skeeter, because I've got your email and that's easy enough. And then we'll eventually this will get put out on PINA's newsletter and stuff like that. But if you want to stay abreast, just hop on the PCX for everybody else, and that's where we'll do updates and stuff like that. And then the overall guide, which is much bigger, and sort of has, one of the things we wanted to avoid was repeating the same information in every small guide. when there's some things that are going to sort of, no matter the type of disaster, you're going to want to be doing and taking account of. So those tend to be in the overall guide, which will be the next one that comes out hopefully within a month, I would think, and maybe even less. And welcome back, Leslie. Glad you made it back.
Yeah, thank you.
So anybody sitting on anything that's bubbling up, or thoughts, comments, considerations? Well, we're working on the tech still. I guess Karine is dealing with Florida internet issues.
Is there
Hey, everyone.
is there any work going on with how you take it from permaculture groups to like local civic or community groups? Is anybody doing any work with that? Emily, that's what you said you were doing, right?
That's the plan,
That's
but
the-
we're still in it's a different context in Canada right now in terms of how many permaculture hubs there are. So just trying to figure out who's doing the work on the ground and then figuring out how to get that into communities, specifically urban communities. That's really the big problem, is that a lot of these permaculture hubs are quite rural, and there's a bit of a barrier of bringing those into urban settings.
Yeah.
A hand up here, Jesse.
Yep, we see Stenbergen. Robin, that is the plan, though, is to distribute these to like local churches and local mutual aid societies and
communities.
Yeah, but Stenbergen, yeah, please, welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I'm actually the only outsider here because I'm literally far in Africa.
Okay, all good. Welcome.
Yeah. I'm glad there's a lot I'm learning in terms of how, because I think looking at the situation that the rest, it's not like we are in isolation. We actually have similar problems. It might be a bit different. It's not like there maybe where people have wildfires, but at least the way you look at things, it's more like our governments have been very careless. And of course, we have different problems, but actually all of it, when you look at it, permaculture is actually the solution. So actually down here, it's not very common. And actually, then again, we have challenges with government policies where you find like there are foreign entities like Monsanto, Bill Gates, and all these entities. They are more kind of interested in just making profits. And I'm sure maybe back in America, they might not be getting the support that they might be getting from our government. So you find like they're deliberately because I've been observing how, like, tracing the nature of how our environment is and how it used to be back in the days before the infiltration of the so-called multinationals. So you find like majority of the situation that we are in, especially the way the land is degraded, it's more like it's human-made. Yet you try to go to see what the governments are doing, but they kind of are just far. When you even try to discuss with them about permaculture, everyone is kind of, what the hell is that? So sometimes it's kind of a bit confusing, but at least I'm learning a lot from whatever actions you people are taking, and I think that's part of what I'm trying to literally be using it as my own arsenal to actually address some of the issues in a local context.
Excellent.
Thank you. I missed what country you're in.
I'm in Kenya.
Kenya. Okay.
Yeah.
Stenberger, if you would put Stenbergen, if you it would be great to have your email. Maybe you could put it in chat. Because I'm assembling. I have a list of people in Africa that I'm working with or corresponding with, and on permaculture and restoration and things. So include you in that if you would like, Net.
Yeah, I've already sent my email.
Okay,
Great.
great.
Now,
I'll have to look through that. So here's my question for Karine now that she's back. So years ago in 1985, I put out a guide called How to Prepare Your Home and Property Against Wildfire. So way back in 85, I wrote something because there wasn't too much available. In the meantime, since then, there has been various government agencies and organizations have put out huge amounts of information on this topic. And what I'm wondering the other day, the fire chief from the Clallam County here in Western Washington said, "Could you give me a list of fire-resistant plants?" And I said, "Well, I'll have to do some research for that." Is there, so I know there's a lot, I imagine hundreds, or at least dozens, if not hundreds, of fire-resistant plants that have been created for different parts of the country. Is there a centralized location where any of us could go and look at a list of all the lists? In other words, if I'm in Georgia, or if I'm in California, or if I'm in Eastern Washington, what are the most pertinent lists closest to me that have been created? That's what I'm looking for. Can you direct me to, has anybody done this yet?
I haven't found one yet. I haven't done thorough research on it, but I am gathering the list that I am finding. A lot of them are from the West, including the Northwest. OSU actually has a pretty good list, which is probably relevant for you. And we're going to be including those in the library, the online library, and in the resource section of the manual. So yeah, we need to, one of our goals is to make this bioregionally relevant. So we'll have to gather that stuff. And then meanwhile, IFAS, a lot of times IFAS has the information, or the local fire agencies. That's where I found it for California, including Northern California. So, and Oregon.
Yeah, great. Well, I see Lee may have some input here.
Yeah, each state I would go to their Forest Service and see what they have, and also native plant societies that might also do that. And I'm going to start helping with that list too. So as I get any other clues, but yeah, that's so important. So
great. Well, I'm glad to broach this, because it would be useful for so many people. And I have my research plate is so full that for me to go out and try to find all the fire-resistant plant lists out there, I would like somebody else to do that part and just send it to me. So I do have a lot of list and useful information, which I should write up what I do have and send it to you, because I do have a lot of information, and I'm collating more all the time. Maybe could I get a quick announcement, or two? It's a question and an announcement. There's the North American Permaculture Convergence that Karine and I helped do the first one. And there's also the North American Bioregional Congress, which started in '84, and the last one was in 2011. There's a move afoot to have another North American Bioregional Congress, and for September 2026, and myself and a friend here are positioning ourselves to host that NABC. Where are things at? I'll certainly can keep people abreast of this. This is just breaking news, so to speak. We'd be doing this at Fort Worden here in Olympic Peninsula if this comes to pass. What I'm curious is, where is the North American Permaculture Convergence at these days in terms of the next one? Is there any kind of movement there? I don't know.
Maybe Peter wants to speak to that a little bit. I don't know.
PINA was contemplating whether it could last year, whether it could try to organize one for this year, but I think that's out of the picture for us now. What we might do beyond 2025 is it's a little too early for us to tell. It takes quite a bit of capacity. We're working close to our limits right now. And I haven't heard other suggestions or movements. People are always interested, but I don't know if groups are stepping forward or letting the word out that they might consider it.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like nothing in the works right now, though there's
interest in Colorado. I can say that, but we were ready to move on that in 2020. In fact, we announced it. But then,
Okay, I do
of course,
recall
the
that.
pandemic hit and we had to go virtual.
Yeah.
We are planning virtual summits quarterly, I think, right, Jesse, or twice a year or something?
Yeah, three to four times a year, depending.
Mm.
Yeah. I had in my notes for PINA 2026 as maybe shooting for a convergence, but it does depend so much on capacity and funding and all that.
Well, this is a really offbeat idea, but I wonder if NAPC and NABC could combine. I think that there's the overlap is huge in terms of people I would think that everybody into permaculture is into bioregionalism, and a lot of people into bioregionalism are into permaculture. Anyway, it's just a thought that popped into my head. So,
I think that would make it much more. That would make it much more likely that it would happen if it could be partnered between maybe even more than two organizations. It would reduce the capacity needed for everybody.
Huh. Okay, well, I'll keep you informed. I tend to open my mouth. My appetite is bigger than my capacity.
It sounds like me. Well, and I can't, it's an idea at this stage that could be looked at further. We don't know yet. I can't speak for PINA, of course. Peter is the one that's pulling the weight here, but it's an idea that maybe is worth exploring. It would be nice to get together.
Yes.
I was on the coordinating council for the last bioregional Congress, and it's an enormous amount of organization, and particularly it requires a fair amount of upfront money. And I know that's the key thing. You don't actually have people saying they're going to show up, but when you have to commit the money, hopefully it pays for itself. And the last one just barely did in Tennessee. And I was the treasurer, and raising money for it. I mean, it's a great event, and well worth having. But it is, somebody has to really put out some effort, and it really needs a bunch of money on top of that. And so if you can pull those two things off, you can provide a great service for people. We had a whole week of people interacting with each other and meeting people and learning. So that's just all I would say is, I mean, I have no taste for doing it myself, let me put it that way. But I'll show up if you do it.
Okay, Bob, we'll put you on our list for advice. If you went through that Tennessee one as the treasurer, you would be a great person for advice.
Yes.
There's quite a bit of experience in the room here with bioregional congresses. Lee, myself.
Yeah, Earth Haven. Yeah.
Yeah. Kentucky, Kansas, Texas. Been to a few.
Does anybody have any more comments or questions about? One thing I wanted to address. I don't know if anyone did when I was gone, but as far as help that's needed, it is in the group, the work group, but also specifically, we're releasing this fire manual as a beta version, and we would love to get feedback. How does it work for you? How does the order work for you? How does the presentation work? How, any advice you have to improve it. It's an ongoing thing, as we said, and this template will be used for other manuals. So it's good to get the feedback now before we get too deep into the weeds on the other one.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. And then the other thing is to just send us case studies you're aware of, send us resources that you're aware of that should get copies of this or could contribute. if you want to help with any aspect of actually creating the manuals, let's have a conversation.
Yep.
Thanks, Karine. It's a really impressive piece of work already.
Mhm.
I think so.
Yeah, Robin.
I want to share an idea, and I love conferences and gatherings and things, but I almost feel like those times need to be reevaluated, and to do things more locally, maybe rather than nationally. I mean, air travel is one of the worst things you can do for the planet in some ways. And, all of this massive movement around to talk about how to, it's just something I like. I like it. Like, I love this. Like, here we are, we're at home, we're able to deal with each other. I think it's important that we build connections locally as we can, but that a large part of the proceedings and everything are spent, digitally, so that we can collaborate in that manner. I've seen more and more sustainability stuff move to that, and it really feels like it walks the walk and the talk, and just something to consider. If we could get, if people in Western North Carolina, we have a little gathering and we have a big screen and we deal with you guys in different areas. It's just, can we do something like that? Because I mean, what everything's calling on us to do is really change how we approach so many things, and this idea of this mobility that we can go wherever we want, whenever we want. We just hop on an airplane. Really? I mean, isn't that why we're dealing with this shit? So it's just something I would put out there for us to evaluate, that how could we do it without it being this massive, all of us in one place kind of thing.
Yeah.
We are good. That's a good point. And yeah, online is great. We are planning an online summit on disaster management, right, Jesse, for August?
August. Yep. Dates to be determined. Yep.
So that's something else that, we might be able to use some help with, possibly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looked like that stimulated a thought in Joshua. Hop on in, Joshua. Welcome.
Thanks. Well, yeah, sorry I'm only joining now, but I really appreciate what I just heard. And I would say it's not something just to consider, it's a necessity.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, for me, I'm not going to fly to any conference under any circumstances whatsoever. Even if my life's in danger, I'm not getting on a plane. It's just a hard limit for me. I don't want to tell anyone else what to do, but there are other ways to travel. I'm not keen on traveling anyway, but we can do a lot here. And so another happy medium would be, biking to some place near you. So, because there is something to be said for having some fresh energy, because I honestly get sucked into apathy when I don't have a little bit more of a boost, whether it's over telecommunications or in person. But once I have a little bit of a boost, then I can gonna have more energy for trying to move the needle in my town here. And I know that that's where the real work is. Spam, sorry. And just, there's other options. We don't have to just be stuck on those two poles. There's, if somebody, some awesome people came by the train and then biked the 2 hours remaining from the end of the train line to where I live to help me with a project here. And they are angels and awesome, and they walk their talk, and it gave me so much energy. And I envision more things like that's really where the leverage is. And then we can do the global or national conferences things by Zoom, or the alternatives to Zoom, because Zoom sucks in a lot of ways.
Right.
So thank you for saying that, and I second that, and even more.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. And I heard Robin talking about this hybrid model that I love. Get together with your neighbors and be in community, both with your neighbors here and share your presence like you're doing today online. And I think that's a lovely model. And I know we're getting close to the end of our time, or maybe we've passed the end of our time.
I'm going to need to sign off.
Yeah, just saying.
Thank you, Peter.
Looked like Skeeter had one thought, though. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Skeeter.
please.
Yeah, there there needs to be 1,000 local events for every 2 or 3 regional events, and there needs to be many, many regional events for every single larger, national or global event. And so we need all of them. I don't think that we could say it's not a black and white. You either all stay home or you all travel. No, it's and so I'm called to put on regional events and sometimes international and national events, and so I think, and it's everybody's choice how they want to go. And I certainly promote train transportation compared to flying. I haven't been on a plane since COVID, but at any rate, it's not black and white. And some of us want to get together at the bigger scale, and I've done online big things as well, and will continue to do hybrid events. But there's something to be said for getting together in person. Yeah. Magic happens when you're in person that cannot happen, that doesn't happen as well over Zoom. So at any rate, just saying that some of us will move forward and let you know.
Yeah, Connie. Thank you, Skeeter.
Yeah, and I wanted to second what Skeeter said, and also just point out, I mean, we had last week, the last town hall, we had a lady from Australia with us, and now we have Stenbergen. Good to see you, good to meet you. And the other thing is too, is just with enhanced networking, a lot of us naturally move around for whatever purposes. A lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us do. And it was through this meeting last month that I got to know about Lee, and coincidentally, I was up in his neck of the woods, and we had to have an opportunity to have a nice morning together on a one-to-one, and that really is, I think that's, when the tire meets the ground, that's where you really have the magic happen, as Skeeter said. So we have to embrace every opportunity, but I think being cognizant and conscious of everything that we do and the rationale behind what we do is what keeps it regenerative and sustainable.